So if this music doesn't work out into the future, you've got a lot of backup options. Adam, so great to see you. You are an amazing soul. You're this musician. You've got this obviously amazing entertainment career, and you're now finishing your PhD in international human rights law. Okay, this is a lot, and I'm just wondering what inspired you to take up activism on protecting the planet. How's music tied into this?
Thank you so much first for talking to me today, and thank you for that question. I've been in school for such a long time, and I know this might sound really strange, but I love being in school. My music career, in the music industry, you never know when you're going to have a hit song, and you never know when you might be nominated for an award. But there's something about school that has so much structure. And for my brain to continue to go back to that structure and have very strict deadlines, that really helps me to stay sane, especially when on the road and touring.
Wait. But before you go on here, let me just, and maybe you're about to say this, but for people who are watching, just describe the number of degrees and what they're in that you are working on and have gotten.
So I was born and raised in New York City, and from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to go to Columbia undergrad. So I went to Columbia undergrad and I studied business and philosophy. And then for my master's degree, I went to NYU, staying in New York, and studied constitutional religious law. And that sounds really strange. It's not law about religion, but it's actually secular law that references religion. So like the First Amendment of the United States. And then now I'm finishing up my PhD, and I wanted a different perspective on it. So I'm doing it in the UK, and I'm studying international human rights law and how human rights relates to sustainability.
Wow. So if this music doesn't work out into the future, you've got a lot of backup options.
But I need to do both. I need that creative outlet for myself, but I also need that, strict academic set of deadlines. But, on the music side, I've learned so much from music that now I'm applying to my activism work and even my academic work, because over the last 15 years, we've built this band, AJR, and we've built it in a way that's focused on excitement and engagement. And it's not just around the music, but it's around touring and the way we make the music and our merchandise and just all of these digital activations that we're doing. It's about getting people engaged in new ways. And I've taken those strategies that I've learned from music, and I'm trying as best I can to apply them to my activism. So there really is this, cross-pollination between these two worlds.
Wow. It's beautiful and inspiring.
So I have to ask about you because, you kind of pegged me as an overachiever, but I need to turn it back on you because talk about you as the governor of Michigan, as an academic. You've really been focused on engaging people, but not only engaging with them, figuring out really strong ways of communicating with them. And that's something that I'm really interested in. And also as the Secretary of Energy, you're doing the same thing. And as a member of the President's Jobs Cabinet, you're always finding new ways to engage with and communicate better with people. So can you talk a little bit about how you're doing that with the bipartisan infrastructure deal and with the Build Back Better agenda?
Oh, that is so great that you would ask. I mean, because you do want to be able to make it real for people, right? It's true. I mean, I had the Department of Energy, and there's a lot of science, and not everybody's a scientist. In fact, the great majority of people are not, but being able to communicate in a way that's real is very important, especially when it involves complex, and kind of obscure sometimes concepts. But it's been such a privilege to be able to travel and to talk to people across the country about our clean energy future and what the Build Back Better agenda, President Biden's agenda, is going to deliver for them, right? Cleaner water, cleaner air, cleaner transportation, all the while creating jobs in every pocket of America. So I've been able to travel despite COVID. We've been able to travel a little bit. So speaking to environmental justice leaders in Houston and in New York, talking to them about the need to put communities that have been burdened by fossil energy at the front of the line for energy benefits instead of the ones who have been hit worst and first. They should be at the front of the line when we're talking about where the benefits go. Going to Nevada to put up American manufactured solar panels on American manufactured steel racks while talking to an IBEW union foreman about the benefits of clean energy jobs and how well paying they are. That was very cool. Going to a Colorado Rockies game with the university students who won our solar decathlon competition and who are now ready to build our clean energy future, totally inspiring. The stories from the road sort of remind me every day why we're fighting so hard for these policies that are going to make their lives, all American lives, better. So I mean, my one particular focus, and this is why I was asked, I think, to be the Secretary of Energy by President Biden, is that I'm completely obsessed with creating good paying jobs in America. I see this clean energy future and the urgent need to deploy not deploy the technologies, right? Put those solar panels up, put those wind turbines up, try geothermal, pulling the heat from under your feet to be able to power turbines that create electricity. We need to provide the clean power, but we also need to put millions of good paying jobs on the docket. We want to make sure people are employed in this clean energy future. So it's not just putting up solar panels like I just described. It's not just putting wind turbines up. It's responsibly mining for critical minerals and smelting the steel that we need to build those things so that we get those jobs here and not have to import those materials from other places. It's using the technologies that we have right now for oil and gas extraction to harness that geothermal energy. So if you can pull fossil fuels from the ground, you can also pull clean energy like geothermal from the ground. It's developing hydrogen and carbon capture technologies to create skills matched jobs for the fossil energy workers who have powered this country for 100 years, but who feel like, is there a future for me? And so we want them to see themselves as working in jobs that power our country for the next 100 years, but in clean energy. So that bipartisan infrastructure deal and the reconciliation bill are going to jumpstart manufacturing and deployment of those critical solutions that our Department of Energy has been developing to combat the climate crisis and also to make our lives better. So passing both is a once in a generation investment in the American people and in our ability to compete and win in the 21st century. That was a long answer. I apologize, but I'm totally geeked about it.
No, but when in my academic world, people tend to use all this obscure vocabulary and these really scientific terms, but the way you just described it was so clear and concise. And one of the really interesting things that I found about what you just said is that a lot of the jobs aren't retraining for something completely different. They're jobs that already exist and just applying them to these new sectors. So it's not going to take years of education. It's not going to take
1,000%. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, let me just say this. There was a study that was done by Georgetown that analyzed what the Build Back Better agenda would bring and what these kind of clean energy jobs would mean. And what they found is that 90% of the jobs would require high school and maybe a little technical training, but they don't require advanced degrees, et cetera. There are all kinds of jobs for all kinds of people in all pockets of America.
Absolutely. I mean, a few weeks ago, I visited a site on the east coast of Manhattan where I live, and there is a seawall being built there to prevent coastal flooding, which is an amazing project. But it's a construction project. It's the same people that are building buildings in New York City and have that kind of training. That is a green job. to create resilience in New York City. So green jobs really don't take the kind of re-education that people are saying, oh, I need to spend so much money and so much time. So I really love this framing of it. I think it's great. I want to ask you about climate change in general and what you and the Department of Energy are doing about climate change to really compete in this 21st century economy.
Yeah, so we are focused on two things. One is, as I mentioned, deploy the proven technologies that we already have, like the solar and the wind and all of that, and to then innovate our way around the challenges that remain in the way of our climate and clean energy goals. So on that deployment, for example, one thing we're trying to do is to make it super easy for communities to install more solar capacity. So we have developed this app. It's called the Solar App. We've created an easy way for local governments to just blow through red tape around solar deployment and lower the wait time that a person who wants to put solar panel on their roof, sometimes they have to wait for weeks, if not months, to be able to get a permit just to put it on their roof. So in one of the cities that we were in, is that the wait for getting that permit was dropped from 20 business days to just a few hours. So we have started this Summer of Solar campaign, which I love. So we want to get 125 communities across the country using Solar App free. It's a free thing. So that's the kind of thing that we are working on. How do we get deployment of technology that we already have, but we can bust through a lot of the barriers that exist to be able to getting it in the ground or on the roof, et cetera. And then on innovation, we're rolling out what we call our Energy Earth Shots initiative. And that really is about a big, hairy, audacious goal of reducing the cost of certain technologies that we know are going to be game changers into the future, but that are not readily available right now because they're expensive. So for example, the ability to store solar and wind, renewable energy, to store it so that you can dispatch it when you need it, because the wind isn't always blowing and the sun isn't always shining. We want to be able to allow the utilities to create these huge batteries, essentially, that will store that renewable energy and allow it to be dispatched. Well, right now, even though the price of those batteries has dropped significantly, we want to drop it 90% so that it's super inexpensive. So there's no question, because wind and solar as a form of fuel are free, right? But if we really reduce the cost of how to store the wind and solar, then that makes it a complete game changer in terms of being able to have clean, what we call base load power that is dispatchable whenever it's needed. So that's super exciting. And then, we're working on the technology side and the deployment side, but the second focus is to really, is guided by the president's Justice 40 initiative. And what that means, it's a commitment to put those communities that I was talking about a minute ago, who've been at the back of the line, in front. 40% of the benefits of this Build Back Better agenda will go to communities, environmental justice communities, communities of color, and fossil communities that have had the rug pulled out from under them and who feel like they have no future either. So just a couple of examples, folks. So we started this working group across the federal government. It's called an interagency working group. And it was focused on lifting up these coal communities into the clean energy future. And so we have announced all this funding, $110 million in funding to drive forward these next generation technologies that are particularly suited to the fossil energy communities. And this is true as well. We want to deploy in communities of color and in communities that have been really hurt by living under the smokestacks of factories, and where their children have to use inhalers in school because they have asthma, because they're breathing in these particulates. Those are the types of communities that should be benefited first. And that's what the Environmental Justice 40 or EJ 40 initiative is about. And then finally, I just want to stress the importance of investing in the nation's tribal communities as well. You know, we announced last month $12 million toward tribal communities for energy efficiency and energy resilience projects. which is going to save these tribal communities, millions of dollars. But I can assure you that this commitment to building the clean energy future must be in an equitable way. And that's going to be our North Star as we put President Biden's Build Back Better investments into action. And that's very exciting. So let me ask you a question.
Can I respond to the EJ40?
Pardon me?
Can I respond to the EJ40 thing?
Of course.
Okay. So I love the EJ40 initiative, and I love the focus on Indigenous communities, because in particular, my academic work focuses on large-scale energy projects and how we can engage local and Indigenous communities around large-scale sustainable energy. So I have a few examples, and mine are mostly international examples, but they can definitely apply in the United States as well. There's this amazing example in Canada where the Indigenous community in Ontario, there's a First Nation there called the Dokis Nation. And what they did is they engaged a hydroelectric company to co-build a renewable energy plant for themselves. And what it did was something really interesting. Yes, it brought clean energy to their community and to the wider Ontario area, but it also encouraged members of their First Nation to come back to the tribe, to their band, and created new jobs for them as well. So it was an economic growth project in addition to a clean energy project. And the Indigenous wisdom and the Indigenous knowledge for clean energy and for growing their, biodiversity and animal preservation, it's so much more than just, clean energy projects. When you engage these local communities, like with EJ40, you have all of these widespread benefits. And this is the stuff that I'm really excited about, because it's what I'm researching on the academic side. But there's such clear examples of it being so successful. And I'm so excited that environmental justice and economic justice and the inclusion of Indigenous communities are such a strong part of the policy of the Department of Energy and this administration.
1,000%, 1,000%. It's also, I think there's a spiritual component to this as well. A spiritual in the sense, the Indigenous community obviously has such an incredible relationship with Mother Earth. And this notion of repairing our home, our global home, is so powerful with that community, that they can be leading and showing the rest of us how we can do this. And their example is amazing. So thanks for raising that as well.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I'm excited that you are doing this work. It's exactly what we should be doing. So I'm thrilled that you're enthusiastic about it as well. So I'm going to flip to you now. So, because you've cranked out all these hit songs and you've been working on your PhD, and I know before the pandemic you were touring the country and the world, so a little bit busy. And as we all go out and get vaccinated, I'm sure you're going to be hitting the road again. But during your travels, and even now through social media and other engagements, I'm just wondering, you talked about the ability to communicate on this issue of climate change. What are you hearing from your fans and others about energy and climate? What do you take in?
Yeah, so there's one really amazing story. There are a bunch of amazing stories, but there's one really amazing story that hits this nail on the head. Before the pandemic, when we were touring, and just to put it out there, I'm fully vaccinated. My brothers are fully vaccinated. That is the only way that we are really going to get back out on tour, if everybody gets vaccinated. So before I answer the question, just a little PSA that everyone needs to get vaccinated so we can hear live music again, in addition to everything else. But there was this story from a young girl in Indianapolis who came to one of our shows before the pandemic. And she got a meet and greet ticket, which means you get to talk with us and take a photo with us and spend some time with us. And she came to tell me a story. And she told me a story about plastic in her school. And what she said was, I didn't think that I had any power as an individual. I didn't think that I could make a difference in activism, in advocacy. But she said, I saw how much single-use plastic we were throwing away in my school. And what she did was she started a petition in her school to end all single-use plastic in the lunchroom. And it worked. She got enough people to sign the petition, so her school no longer uses single-use plastic. And it didn't stop there. She actually brought the petition to the district and got enough people in the district to sign up and say, we want to end single-use plastic in the lunchroom in the entire district. And now they're trying to do it for their entire town. So that, I mean, I'm tearing up a little bit, but that story resonated so much with me, because I struggle with, do individuals have the power to make change? That really is the question that I get from our fans when we're on the road and on social media. Is what I'm doing really worth it? And then I hear a story like this, and the answer is yes. Every voice matters. If there were just fewer signatures on that petition, then it might not have happened. And this girl who actually took the time and energy to make this difference in her school and then her district and now her town, there is real change happening from individual people that can make a difference.
That is totally inspiring. And it tells you that individuals can make a difference. And can I just build on that as well? Because, for people who are watching right now, the question is, how do they get involved? How do they do something? And let me just say, because maybe I am a public policy person too, and I look at how as an individual can I make the greatest change for the greatest number? And honestly, the secret to that is for people to get involved, to get out and vote. The climate crisis does not have a party. The biggest impact people can have if they care about climate change and other issues is to put people in office who care about this issue, because policy change is critical to making big systemic change. And maybe that means asking somebody who's running. That does mean asking, what is your position on climate change? What is your position on achieving, a net zero, carbon future, 100% clean electricity? Where do you stand on this? Their stance on sustainable development. I mean, honestly, that's what leadership makes a difference. And I encourage people who care about this desperately to run for office as well, because we need leaders. And maybe you're not somebody who wants to be a politician. Maybe you run to head an organization, and maybe in your organization, you get your organization to ban single-use plastics, or you get your organization to get a recycling campaign going, or you lead your, whatever the leadership position is that you might hold. You can lead from, you don't have to be the head of it. You can lead from below, like this girl did, right? You can change, it takes one person to change another mind, and those two can change two more minds. I'm just telling you the possibility, but getting active and not just closing your eyes, not just expecting that somebody else is going to do it. We all have a joint responsibility for our home. And I hope that individuals who are watching see their power as leaders, even unauthorized leaders, to make this kind of change. That story is exactly where we want to go. So, and let me just jump back quickly to the vaccination thing too. I have to say, because if people go to www.vaccines.gov, you can find a vaccine site near you. So this is our one-on-one leadership to all the people who are watching. Please get vaccinated. It's not just about you. It is about all of those around you. And if you care about your community, you don't want inadvertently to be someone who causes somebody to get sick or even worse. So please, please get vaccinated.
And we want to go back on the road again. We want to tour again.
Yes!
Please let us do that. And it's only going to happen if you get vaccinated. We want to play live music for you. Let's do it.
I want to hear it. Thank you so much for this fabulous conversation and for your fabulous soul.
Thank you.
I really appreciate being with you and being able to spread the good news about climate and the climate, jobs, vaccination, and your music.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for all of your work. It is so inspiring and exciting, and I'm looking forward to doing more together.
All right, let's do it.